Hey all, here are OS Reviews. Today we're taking a closer look at the Unihertz TickTock-E. This is a pretty unique smartphone because it has a secondary display on the back, which as the name implies is inspired by a watch. Especially with this texture going on, it almost looks like a watch strap. Definitely interesting. Now you guys may remember that a couple of weeks back we did do a review on another model from this company, Unihertz, that was called just the TickTock. This came out earlier in the year. However, the regular TickTock is a much thicker phone and heavier as a result. Plus, it has a more powerful Dimensity 700 chipset, which is 5G enabled, and that makes this a more expensive device as well, coming in around $400 or so, versus the TickTock-E is kind of a light version of that phone, which has more entry-level / mid-tier specs, and is priced at under $200. Aside from taking a look at the time without having to wake up the main phone, you are able to also use it as a viewfinder for the rear camera. Just capture more impressive selfies in general. Aside from that, you can also take a look at some quick notifications as well as control things like your music without having to wake up, again, your main phone to do that. Now, some specs include a octa-core 2.3 gigahertz processor. This is the MediaTek P35. It's similar in performance and power to something like a Snapdragon 625 or 450, so you get the idea there, definitely more of an entry-level model. 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of built-in storage, further expandable via micro SD card, along with a 48 megapixel camera there for the primary, 8 megapixel front-facing lens, a giant 6,000 milliamp hour capacity battery, so this thing is still an endurance champion, and also packs a 6.5-inch display with a water drop notch. You do get some additional SIM card ejector tools, as well as an extra screen protector in the box, along with essentials like a included wall adapter, which is using, again, a regular USB Type-A port, plus a Type-C to 3.5mm headphone adapter and a regular Type-C cable for syncing and charging. Now, taking a closer look at the design, I have to say that the feeling of the phone in the hand is definitely not an area that you can tell that it's a cheaper device, because we still have these aluminum edges combined with the really nice soft touch grippy rubber here on the back with this extra textured strap there. Just makes the thing feel ultra premium in the hands. On the spine here, you will find access to a side-mounted fingerprint scanner, which is actually pretty accurate, also dubbed as the power key. There's also the volume buttons, which are separated and textured, feeling pretty tactile and clicky, albeit their placement is a little bit tall for my personal preference, considering that we do have a relatively big 6.5-inch display. That secondary screen, by the way, measures 1.28 inches diagonally as a perfect circle, and then have an LED flash there at the top. The mounting here is also constructed out of aluminum, so it is well protected and slightly recessed so it doesn't hit a surface when you accidentally drop it, albeit there is still a little bit of a bump as a result. Now on the other side, you do have two remappable programmable buttons, which are quite nice. By default, the bottom one can be tapped once to turn on the rear display. You can also trigger shortcuts like double tapping to turn it on in the software. The top key here, again, can be used to open up other programs. You can select that in settings. However, by default, if you long hold, it will turn on the flashlight. The top here features an IR blaster, so you can use this as a remote to control TVs and other appliances. Great to see here at this price, and again, pretty slim for a rugged phone. Nice bumpers here on the edges, which also protects it if you accidentally drop it onto a corner. The bottom here features just the Type-C port, no standard headphone jack, kind of what we expect these days, and just a single speaker there on the side. Then coming over here to the front, we have that aforementioned 6.5-inch panel with that water drop notch, and impressively, it is running on a pretty up-to-date version of Android 12. And once you are into the UI, we are granted to a pretty clean version, again, of Android, aside from a few toolbox features that have been pre-installed, just giving you access to some more utility tools, such as the ability to control things with the IR remote. A compass, barometer, protractor, as well as a leveling tool are all functions that you'll find on here, along with a decibel meter to tell you how loud your surroundings are. So pretty standard features on rugged phones. Aside from that though, everything else is clean. It comes with just the stock Google apps for you to further check out, as well as install more programs from the Play Store, so no real issues there. When it comes to the regular navigation and usage of the phone, again, very stock feeling, and I have to say that in terms of regular navigation at least, it's definitely not bad. Things for the most part are able to tick along just fine, no pun intended. There is, by the way, also a pre-applied factory screen protector, which is actually quite premium and it feels a little bit more grippy as you are running your hands along. And as you can see here, opening up menus for the most part doesn't result in too much lag or delay. It still works perfectly fine. With that being said, as you start running more heavy programs and gaming, that's where the weaker processor here will start to become more apparent. And otherwise, you do have also the addition of NFC built on in, which is, again, quite rare to find on a phone for under $200, which is appreciated as well. So let's jump into the camera performance and take a quick look first. I would say cameras are never going to be a forte of budget, lower cost phones, but within its price range, at 48 megapixels, this thing is really not bad. One thing that seems to be missing would be an HDR mode, so that is something to keep in mind. You can try, for instance, Gcam if you want to further tweak that yourself. Under Pro, you can change things like ISO and exposure. You can also record video up to full HD resolution, and then under the macro mode, it will trigger a close-up lens using the secondary camera, which is only 2 megapixels, so not the most practical, but still can be fun at times just to occasionally play around with. So here's a few sample shots using the aforementioned kind of macro camera just to give you guys an idea. The results are really not bad. In fact, I would rate it to be above average. It's not going to beat a Pixel for sure, but again, for under $200, it still is packing in really sufficient detail, natural looking colors. So camera, although it's not going to win any awards, it's surprisingly quite good for the entry level price. Now hopping into a video playback test and also what the speakers sound like next. Let's do a quick demo. Alright, so some takeaways here would be the speaker quality itself is not shabby in terms of it doesn't distort too much even at higher volumes, still sounds pleasant, albeit it is a mono speaker, so you won't be getting a stereo separation effect from the earpiece that is found on more expensive phones, but that's kind of expected. The screen quality, by the way, though, is quite good. It's a fully laminated display and colors are actually quite vibrant and rich, so it gets you a quite immersive experience for what it is. The phone, again, is still quite slim and comfortable to hold, so not bad at all when it comes to watching back some quick YouTube clips or Netflix with. Albeit, this particular display has just a HD plus resolution, so just a little bit better than 720p as opposed to full 1080 that was found on the original. It's still bright enough to be seen when there's a bit of light hitting on it and has very good viewing angles and colors, so it kind of makes up for it and doesn't become too distracting, I would say. It's also allowing the phone to push around less pixels, which I think is important considering it is an older, less powerful processor. And even as it is, there are some occasional moments of hesitation when you are watching back higher resolution videos, and some of the animations, as you can see there, will take a moment to trigger compared to, say, on a faster device. So do keep that in mind, but everything is still serviceable at the end of the day. And again, the modern Android 12 UI with the oversized icons, overall, it's quite attractive and at least easy to use, but again, just keep in mind that whenever you press on something, loading things might take a moment or two initially for them to start, but afterwards, at least, I'm not noticing too much lag or delays in terms of continuing to play. Antenna reception quality using Wi-Fi and 4G were both quite strong here in the Seattle region. Going over to the web browser, I would say it's much of the same deal. There is nothing preventing you from loading up more complex web pages. Antenna reception is still helping things to tick along here relatively quickly, albeit more complex pages might take a second or two longer to fully load, as you can see there, and there might be some occasional moments of hesitation or jumpiness as you're scrolling through, but it's nothing that just taking a moment or two later can't fix, and still is a perfectly usable experience. More than anything, I would say the 4 gigs of RAM is on the slightly lower side here in late 2022. It still is decent, but we have just a couple of programs running there in the background, and we have around 2.5 gigs remaining. So keep that in mind. If you start opening up multiple tabs and have other content running in the background, it may eat up that a little bit more, and then switching between apps might become a little bit more jumpy as a result. You can also change the watch face if you want to try a different style, for example. So you can double tap, that will go through a carousel of options options under the subscreen settings, very similar to the other TicWatch phone. Again, this is where you can personalize all those watch dials and add more by using your own photo as the background, how long you want to take for that image to time out, as well as whether you want some gestures like double tap, flipping the phone around to trigger that display can all be found. We're also able to verify that indeed it's running on, again, a very clean version of Android 12. Maybe last but not least, some other applications that you could try out, such as light gaming. The emphasis here is on light. You can definitely get by with a bit of light gaming, things like Stack, which are less intensive on the animations. Slightly older games and titles are perfectly fine in terms of running here pretty smoothly. With that being said, again, if you're trying to run more graphically demanding games like PUBG or Asphalt, that's going to be definitely more of a challenge for this processor. You'll notice a lot more of drop frames, and it will start getting a lot hotter as well. So if you are kind of a gamer, this is probably not the best choice for you. It's really when you start getting into some of those AAA titles that you'll find a lot more of difficulty on here, with more moments of hesitation and sluggishness. But simple things like this, it can still do all right. And as aforementioned, the display here is really good enough for also doing things like comic reading, ebook reading, everything like that still is quite enjoyable on here. It gets fully topped up in around 2 hours, which is not bad, and then it will more than easily last you through at least a day or two of usage, if not longer. Honestly, if you're quite light on using your phone, this can extend for up to 3 to 4 days in my personal usage, so endurance is extremely strong. So you can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below, but that's pretty much it as far as our hands-on look at the Unihertz TickTock-E. Again, pretty much a entry-level variant of the original TikTok, still having that concept of a rather unique secondary display on the back of your phone for notifications, time, customization, and acting as a viewfinder. Not a bad idea, but you do have to live with a little bit more of a bump. All the regular day-to-day usage, including the display, all feel quite good, especially with the Android 12 vanilla software experience. Granted, I think the processor could be a little bit faster. However, it's a compromise, again, by having some added unique features. You have to, of course, cut down on other spots to ensure the cost comes down, but really not bad for an entry-level phone. You can check out more details, but for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.